Well, hi everyone. I'm John Ritland, and this is a retro review of WCW Superbrawl 2000. And holy fuck, this pay-per-view was as atrocious as I remember it being when I saw it back in the day. I watched every bit of the Monday Night Wars, every bit that I could, and WCW 2000 was a fucking slog. Despite the talent, they just did not know what the fuck they were doing. It was absolutely insane to watch a company that was once great, that was once at the peak of the Monday Night Wars, that was the trendsetter that was doing so many great things. And sure, they were doing some bad stuff even at their height, but my God, it got so much worse. If you thought 99 was bad, 2000 was even worse. And I mean, this is like the peak. The sad thing is, it would actually only get worse by this point. If I thought this was the worst they could be, they would make David Arquette world champion soon after this, and even that wasn't as bad as it would get during the summer. So, we have Snickers sponsoring Superbrawl 2000. Okay, cool, no Slim Jim stuff anymore. They went 13 minutes before the first match. A pay-per-view that people paid for, by the way. Pretty goddamn ridiculous, not gonna lie. Jeff Jarrett and the Harris brothers took out Commissioner Kevin Nash because there's been this whole battle between Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash to be the commissioner of WCW. Because that's exactly what people want to watch. They want to watch, wrestlers that really weren't all that good by 2000 competing over a commissionership. Boy, it was really, really fucking ridiculous. So we have Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay, and unfortunately Mark Madden on commentary. So at least 2/3 of the commentary was good. They run down the card. We get a Cruiserweight tournament recap. And then we have Lash LaRue versus the artist formerly known as Prince Iaukea. And you had Paisley there, I believe was the manager's name. And this was like... There were 5 matches in the first hour, and they combined went like 40 minutes, maybe. Again, this is a pay-per-view people paid for. This was horribly booked. I mean, the action, I guess, was fine, but it was a quick match, and, it was a fast start, and soon after Tornado DDT for the win, Prince Iaukea gets the victory. Boy, not that he was much of a threat beyond the mid-card, but this gimmick was just fucking terrible. And so he wins the Cruiserweight Championship. And it would be another belt that they would hot potato around. We then get Brian Knobbs against Bam Bam Bigelow, WCW Hardcore Championship. Knobbs had a cast on his hand because of all the accidents he had. No boy. This was a mess. This was even shorter than the Cruiserweight title match. We go backstage for a bit. Finley, who had been helping Brian Knobbs for a bit, tries to help him. Brian Knobbs is like, no, I want to do this on my own. And they battle a bit back into the ring, and then Finley still tries to help Brian Knobbs. Bam Bam kind of gets sent over the ropes to the stairs, to the floor, and then Brian Knobbs uses the cast to get the victory. If it seems like I'm going through these matches kind of quickly, it's because there isn't a whole lot to talk about with this. This show was a goddamn mess. It was actually goddamn atrocious how much of a mess it was. It was insane. And then we get 3 Count versus Norman Smiley, a 3-on-1 match, because 3 Count had been effectively kind of jobbed out by this point, even though they had just been formed. And this wouldn't be as bad as when they teamed up with Tank Abbott, of all people. And don't worry, I'll get to him later. But Norman dominates at first, tossing them all around, tosses Shannon Moore onto both of them outside, and does a few moves. And then soon after, they would take over, numbers advantage, 2 splashes from Evan Courageous and then Gregory Helms. And then a Boston Crab variation by Shannon Moore would tap out Norman Smiley, who had injured ribs. Jerry Rice jersey covered up. Yeah, this is where we were going with the pay-per-view, and really, really rushed and really, really ridiculous. And then we get Jarrett saying to the Harris brothers, the racist Harris brothers, hey, find out who's behind this secured door. Because we see various secure doors and stuff like that, but it's all the participants of the upcoming triple threat match. But who's behind the secure door that nobody can get into? Could it be a referee? Could it be somebody that's going to take over the company? Could it be, a magician? Who the fuck knows? But we get to find out who it is later. And then we get the Wall versus the Demon, the Kiss Demon. Boy, this is really what they were doing in WCW 2000. We get an attack at the entrance because the Demon's like, hey, the Wall isn't coming out. I'm going to go find him at the entranceway. And I just stand around like an idiot. Oh, and he attacks me. And then it's a bit of a brawl. And the Demon gets in some shots. But then gets hit with a choke slam off the ropes for 3. Cool. That's where we're going with this. And then Ernest Miller hypes up James Brown appearing on the show, on the pay-per-view. Will he appear? Shockingly, we'll find out. Okay, Tank Abbott versus Big Al. 2 guys, I guess, that plain just don't like each other. It's a leather jacket on a pole match. Or a skins match. Hey, you got to get this fighting jacket up there. This fighting leather jacket. And it was crap. This was crap. Like, they tie each other together with a belt and do this kind of stuff and everything in the boxing and all this, and it was absolutely ridiculous. It was fucking atrocious. At one point, Tank Abbott tries to go up the pole with Big Al on his shoulders and then just drops him off the ropes. He hits the freaking steps, falls to the floor, crumples to the floor. Tank Abbott hits him with one shot and then goes up and gets a leather jacket. That was a match that people actually paid to see, though I'm pretty certain a lot of free tickets were given out for this show. And again, 5 matches in 40 minutes. And then we get Stevie Ray and Booker T cutting promos. Well, he's Booker because he lost the rights to the T because the Harlem Heat thing with, Big T, a.k.a. Ahmed Johnson, and Booker was going on at this point. We actually get this match, and it was Stevie Ray there and the former Clarence Mason, and it was bad. The whole battle for the Lair T and the Harlem Heat name, and we get Ahmed, he could not work at all. Booker looks like he's about to get the victory, the lights go out, and then suddenly some big guy shows up. I don't even remember what the guy's name was. And Ahmed Johnson hits a terrible Pearl River plunge, easy for me to say, and gets a victory, 1, 2, 3. Once again, matches that were actually happening. So Harlem Heat, it's Harlem Heat 2000. Booker T is no longer there. He's Booker, and it's Stevie Ray and Big T. And it didn't last very long because he was gone from the company soon after. We then get the Maestro with Symphony, who is Ryan Shamrock. I don't know what this was. He's the grandnephew of Gorgeous George, by the way. But he says, hey, if Ernest Miller can produce James Brown, I'll listen to whatever music he plays. That's what we're fighting over, is music being played. We then get Kidman with Torrie Wilson versus Vampira. It was a match that was built on respect. They teamed up, they'd had some matches, and they're having this match on pay-per-view. Considering actually what we've been dealing with, it wasn't bad, but it still wasn't great. This would have just belonged on Nitro. Torrie tries to help Kidman. Vampiro gets upset at that. We get some more action and a reverse DDT variation off the ropes for 3. And halfway through, 7 matches done. That's where we're at. We are halfway through the pay-per-view. 7 matches of the 11-match card are done. A Terry Funk interview where he hypes up the Texas Death Match with Flair, and Dustin's there at his side. And then Sid yells at the security guys, go get Mean Gene. I need to talk to him. This was a terribly paced pay-per-view. Johnny the Bull and Vito with Disco Inferno versus Crowbar with David Flair and David Flair with Daphne. A Sicilian stretcher match. You must put both members of a team on a stretcher, and they need to be taken out of the venue. Well, at least taken out of the ringside area and to the back. And the referees are there to do that, not the wrestlers. You don't want to make this exciting. Leave it to the referees to do that. Daphne was screaming a lot. Disco joined commentary. This was not good. It was not good at all. They used a stretcher. They used a whole lot of stuff. It was ridiculous. It was goddamn ridiculous. We get, Daphne does a Hurricanrana. She sprays Disco in the face. No, it's not a euphemism. We get a table spot. We get David Flair taped and then sent off. And then another table. Vito splashes Crowbar through that. Crowbar gets sent on a stretcher, and then Daphne gets taped to a wheelchair, and the Mamalukes or the Paisans or wherever the hell they were win. So that was your tag team title match, by the way. Your tag team title match. It was just fucking terrible. Sid then says to Mean Gene, whoever comes out during this, I'm going to beat them. I'm the master and the ruler of the world, this kind of stuff. And he whispered a little too much. The mic wasn't exactly tuned to pick him up very well. We then get Ernest Miller and the Maestro and a James Brown impersonator. And this segment went on longer than some of the matches. Would James Brown show up? He did show up. And some people popped. And I got nothing against James Brown. His music was fine. He's been dead for years. I mean, he died about 6 years after this pay-per-view. But, because he was an old man at that point. But it's like, I got nothing against James Brown, as far as a musician. But why? Why was he there? Why? To what end was he there? What did this help? It didn't. It was a waste of money, a waste of resources. Good Lord. So, I don't get the point of this. I also don't get the point of Ric Flair versus Terry Funk in a Texas Death Match. And even though this match still was probably the best thing on the show, it was still older versions of these guys that had classic matches in '89. And this was unnecessary. There were table spots. There were pile drivers on the floor, on the concrete, a pile driver through the table, and some other spots and everything that were fine. But whoever can't get up, by the way, in a Texas Death Match after a pinfall or a submission, whoever can't answer a 10 count loses. That's basically the idea. And yeah, Terry Funk tries to go for a moonsault, but he gets sent through a table. Flair ends up pinning him, and then he can't get back up because Flair is not unconscious, but Terry Funk is, and there we go. Okay, cool. All right, Ric Flair gets the victory. Again, rushing through some of this stuff. We get Hulk Hogan. He has a cast on his arm, and so does Jimmy Hart because Lex Luger broke those, hands. And now we get Luger with Miss Elizabeth versus Hogan with Jimmy Hart in 2000. And both these guys were immobile. Both these guys couldn't move at all. And the match, I didn't expect the match to be very good, but considering these guys have faced off about 2.5 years ago, or 2.5 years before this on Nitro, and both were way more mobile by that point, it was just amazing. And even Hogan wasn't that mobile by that time, but Luger was pretty goddamn, hot, like as far as like crowd reaction and everything. And yeah, the crowd was booing Luger because he was supposed to be the heel, and you had red and yellow Hogan, and it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. It was just fucking terrible. We get low blows. We get weight belt being used. Jimmy Hart uses his cast on Luger's back while the referee's distracted. Hogan uses his cast. Leg drop, 1, 2, 3. That's it. And then Ric Flair attacks Hogan. And then Sting comes down. Sting, who was not on the goddamn card, but came down for this and attacked. Okay, that's where we're going with this. This is what we're going with? Really? This is what we're going with? My God. Then Sting helps Hogan. Cool. Okay. Whatever. We get Scott Hall and Jeff Jarrett and Sid Vicious in a WCW title match, and Scott Hall and Jeff Jarrett start the match, and Sid makes his entrance complete with music and just takes his time going down to the ring when both these guys could have either, pinned the other at some point. The Harris brothers were also there, and they kept interfering, and there were 6 ref bumps in this. 6 ref bumps. Or, multiple ref bumps. I don't know, I might have lost count. It might have only been 5. But then who suddenly comes out? It's Roddy Piper in that same elbow, cast thing that he had at Starrcade 99. I think he had some kind of surgery. But anyway, he comes out and he causes Jeff Jarrett to lose. We get a chokeslam Jeff Jarrett. We get the last rites or the big power bomb to Scott Hall. Sid Vicious gets the victory. 1, 2, 3. That is the end of your pay-per-view, by the way. I blitzed through that a whole lot quicker than a lot of people could have. And look, I get it. I really do get it, but I'm sorry. If you're going to tell me that this pay-per-view is worth paying money for back then, and I had a friend that actually did buy these, this was fucking terrible. This wouldn't have even been worth like $15. And WCW was the king of the Monday Night Wars for a while, and by this point they couldn't book anything to save their lives. Despite the talent they had. There was some good talent on the show, but they either had talent that was rushed out too quickly or whatever. It was not good. Anyway, that's all I gotta say, guys. So do you agree, do you disagree with what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.